I started working more shamanically with herbs, so getting in touch with the spirit of plants. How can I give the medicine as purely as possible to the patients that I work with, the clients that I work with?
How did the plants first start speaking to you?
It's really exploring the plant as deeply as you can and with as much integrity as you can to understand what they have for you. And they speak to you, they do. But it's very subtle. It's not always going to happen in visions, right? A lot of plants, even similar to mugwort, you've got nettle, you've got tulsi, there's a lot of herbs that you can use. They're not these master plants like ayahuasca or tobacco. You can still get deep realizations with these plants, but there's a difference in terms of the scale with it. And my message is always really simple. I don't sometimes think we need the big plants to have the transformation. The exterior world that feels so real, right? It's conditioned us to believe that the piece is outside of us, that we have to go searching for it when it's always been here, it's always been inside us. And my goal is to utilize and connect with plants to help bring that inner peace closer to that. So if we can utilize plants to help them get to there, it's like the plants are just helping you get to the door, but you still have to open the door. They're there just to guide you. It's like, as a coach, I say to people that I'm there to hold your hand, but you still have to walk. Chocolate, cacao, what is what, and ceremonial grade cacao, it means it's the purest form of chocolate. In the past, cacao seeds were actually traded as currencies. I see cacao as this energy of abundance, of money, of exchange. A lot of the chocolate now that we see in the shops have been tested and they're really high in heavy metals. And it also means that it's not, because it's not nutrient dense, because it doesn't come straight from the pod, it's still been processed. You're not getting the shamanic benefits of cacao. You're not getting the spirit of cacao because the medicine is being diluted each and every time. So when you get to the final product, you're left with just like the residence.
How does one get to know if we are working with a more feminine type of plant or a masculine type of plant?
It's similar to us as human beings. Like, even though I'm a female, I still have the feminine and masculine energy inside me, but I'm still a female. I still have that female energy. And it's very much similar to plants, even though they're balanced. With a masculine plant, you get more kind of like direction. It's a little bit more forceful. I see it more as like a fire energy, and it can be more pushing, as opposed to a female plant, which can be a bit more grounding and a little bit flowy, a little bit like water.
Is there anything that you would recommend to the audience, as in like a daily ritual?
I also like to emphasize to a lot of my clients that intuition is a muscle and it has to be exercised, because we expect to just have it.
I have a friend in Mexico. She told me that she used to hang out with shamans, and that they did these kind of practices where they would train their intuition. So they would have to Quick heads up before we continue. I just launched the official Twisted Reality newsletter. If you're someone who resonates with what I explore on this channel, then you're going to love this. It's where I share the deeper stuff, the stories, the insights, and the uncomfortable questions that don't always make it into videos. If that sounds like something you want to be part of, you can join the newsletter using the link in the description below. Love to see you there. Today, I'm sitting down with someone who calls taking a break a sacred pause. Most of us rush to reply, to act, to keep going. But what if the most aligned thing you could do was pause? In a world that pays by the hour, measures by our performance, and values speed over depth, she appears to have got it all wrong, or maybe not. My guest today, Jade Lovel, is a herbalist, naturopath, and a life coach whose life is guided by a deep connection to spirit, the earth, and sacred timing. Welcome, Jade. Thank you.
For having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. And I love to begin with your personal story. How did the plants first start speaking to you?
Mhm.
How did they come into your life?
Mhm. Um, okay, where do I begin? I've been working with plants for the last decade, and that's where my journey with cacao began as well, about 10 years ago. So I grew up in a family where there was a lot of health issues and a lot of autoimmune issues, and a lot of my family were on pharmaceutical drugs. So that was the norm for us for like growing up. I just thought that was life. That was the way we lived in terms of always relying on conventional medicine to heal us. Yet it wasn't healing because it was continually, having more symptoms and pain. And I just remember having this really irrational, but I think it was also my soul having this fear to like propel me to action. I had this fear of dying of cancer. Like I was like, I'm gonna die of cancer, I'm gonna get a disease and I'm gonna just die, and then this is gonna be my fate. And I was very young when I had this fear. And it didn't make sense to me at the time, but it led me to where I am now. So ever since then, I was always like, there must be something else. Like there must be like a fix, there must be a cure, there must be something. And it's not that I'm saying that herbal medicine is here to cure anyone. I'm just saying that there's that natural medicine and herbalism, cacao, is a way of us our body, because our body is so it's full of so much wisdom, and if we give it the right conditions, it can thrive and it can actually heal itself in the right environment. And I believe that. So I'm not putting all the not the blame, but I'm not giving herbs the big shout out. I'm just saying that our body wants to find balance. It's always trying to get into homeostasis. So if we actually give it the right tools, it can actually do that. So with my journey, I started working with cacao a decade ago, and I went to my first ever cacao ceremony, and it was incredible. I didn't know what it was. I just signed up to it because I was very eager to learn on this path. And I went and I kept going for like a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2. It was a weekly thing. And from the first session, I was just amazed at the inner peace that I felt from it. And that was the main thing that I took away from it. Because for me, I always struggled with that inner peace growing up. And I think in the world that we live in, it's full of so much anxiety, it's fear driven, and there's competition, and we're always searching for a fix, really, whether it be drugs, alcohol, sex, everything else is always something external to kind of make us feel better. And with that journey with cacao, I was really surprised at how it made me feel inner peace, but it wasn't something that felt external. It felt very internal, that it was coming from my own heart. And that was what captivated me. I was like, this is actually quite interesting. And I kept going back until I stopped, and I was working with cacao myself. I then started to work with herbal medicine. I started to get into nutrition. I changed my diet completely from eating the way that my family used to eat. I come from a Spanish background, so we'd eat a lot of fish, but it was also very heavily meat based, and it was just very unhealthy. That I now live and eat very much whole foods. I cook everything. Everything's all good, and I try to live close to vegetables and fruit and just have my diet look like a rainbow, which is really important. So I made sure to do that, like in terms of like, educating myself about nutrition and herbalism. This was all my self studies that I was doing and experimenting with herbs. And I took a little break from cacao and just worked with different plants. And once I started to fall in love with it, I was like, I really want to study this. Like, I need to study this so I can teach others this because this is amazing. And I then studied for 5 years my herbal medicine course to become a qualified herbalist. So I'm a qualified herbalist, naturopath. It came together. And during that time, it just felt like all the pieces were coming together. I was like, it makes sense why like my family was like this, and I had to go down this path because I have a really strong why. And my why is that I want to help people feel this inner peace that I never had, and also give them another option. And I think when people a lot of the times where people are stuck in fear and anxiety, depression, it's because they don't feel that there is hope. And my goal is to inspire and give people hope, because when we have hope, it means there's an option for change, there's an option for something different. And I never thought I had that. So finding that for myself, I'm like, now I get to give that to others. It's like, it's such a beautiful gift. And studying my course, fell in love deeper with herbs. I started working a little bit more shamanically with herbs, so getting in touch with the spirit of plants. And I worked with mugwort. And through my journey with mugwort, I ended up having really vivid dreams with cacao. And I had like this really strong message from cacao, like, now is the time to get back into cacao. I was like, oh, okay, like we're back. And I started working with cacao, drinking ceremonial grade cacao daily. And that went on for a few months, and I felt a really big pull on my heart, like, I need to take this further now. Again, like, there's always this like pull on the heart of like when something needs to take like another step forward. And I decided to sign up for a cacao, it's called a cacaoista training. So it was an intense shamanic training to learn more about cacao and to facilitate. And did that training, learned so much about cacao and like strengthened my love for her. And once I came back to my course, I had to write my research project, so a dissertation on a plant of my choice. And originally I was going to write about mugwort because I loved mugwort. But then after that experience that I had, I was like, and my continual work with working with cacao shamanically, I was like, I have to write about cacao. And I was like, this is it. It's a no-brainer. Cacao has to be that has to be the one I talk about. So my project was all about how I explored cacao and in terms of the mind body soul connection, and how cacao could be used maybe as an antidote for depression and anxiety. So I posed it as a question. It wasn't something that I was looking for the answer. I was just saying, could cacao be the remedy? Could cacao be the solution? And there was a lot of things that I found in that project, and it was really insightful, and it helped me understand a little bit more about myself and also about the clients that I was working with at the time and how it was helping them, and using all that information into the piece. I then started to present this to my lecturer and my classmates, and I was like, this is my piece on cacao, Theo Brahma cacao. And my lecturer was like, this is amazing, like this is great. And he was like, this reminds me, someone like years ago wrote about cacao. I was like, oh, that's amazing, like I'd love to like see this research so I can like use it for my paper. They were like, he said, if you go upstairs into the library, the paper will be there. So once everyone went home and it was the end of the day, I went upstairs and I checked the paper. And when I looked at the name, it was the woman who introduced me to cacao 10 years ago. And in that moment, I cried. It sounds so silly, but I cried. And I was like, oh my God, this is the path. This is the path. And it reminds me of the quote that Steve Jobs like talks about, like you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. So at that moment, I looked back at my life and I was like, oh my God, all the confusion, all the steps that didn't make sense at the time, they made sense because it led. And it's one of my favorite stories, and I tell this all the time in my ceremonies because it blows my mind at how life isn't random. Like everything has a meaning, and there's so much symbolism, but we're just not awake. We're not like aware of it. And if we open ourselves up, we can actually really see it.
Wow. I found it really interesting because when you said cacao, you said it's she.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear, like, how does one determine, or how does one get to know if we are working with a more feminine
Mhm.
type of plant or a masculine type of plant, and
Mhm.
how are they different?
Yeah. It's really interesting because I kept referring to cacao as she in my paper, and my lecturer said, Jade, stop personifying the plant. I said, but it's a she. It is a she. Shamanically, it's a she. So I have to like get out of the habit of saying, but I can't because cacao is a very much a female energy. Like she has that, and I can't say it. I can't say cacao. And whenever I refer to other plants as well, it can very much be he, and it's similar to us as human beings. Like even though I'm a female, I still have the feminine and masculine energy inside me. But I'm still a female. I still have that female energy. And it's very much similar to plants, even though they're balanced, like you've got the yin and the yang, light and dark,
Mm.
polarity of everything. Some plants just have more of that energy. And it's similar to like what the feeling you get from them. And it's like with a masculine plant, you get more kind of like direction. You kind of get more kind of, it's kind of a little bit more forceful. I see it more as like a fire energy, and it can be more kind of like pushing, as opposed to like a female plant, which can be a bit more grounding and a little bit flowy, a
Mm.
little bit like water. It kind of like it can transmute, and it can kind of like change shapes and forms, similar to fire as well, I suppose, but it's two very different energies. And a good example I can talk about is another plant I work with in my cacao ceremonies is frankincense. So I burn the resins of frankincense in my ceremonies, and frankincense is a very much a masculine
Mm.
plant, even though it's not masculine presenting, but it's masculine energy. And you feel it because there is this direction. You kind of, and that's the best way I can describe it without it being very logical. It's very much direction. You get more of a direction, a bit more clarity, even though you can get clarity with cacao. And I do think that's maybe a mixture of the masculine energy, or it's just the combination of it being a heart opener, so it helps with the blood flow to the brain as well. But it's more of it's an energetic feel, and I think it's the way it makes you feel. Trying to like no, trying to make it make sense, and it does that.
Yeah, whatever you experience,
Yeah.
you you experience the plant, or you experience when you are in touch with cacao, you feel that nurturing, maybe like a warmth that she has.
Hmm. I definitely feel that. I feel for me, cacao is a sister. So I make a joke, a very silly joke, but I say that cacao could be what you want her to be. She could be like a sister, a mom, a grandma. It's just the divine feminine, like I see her. Like, so some
Mm.
people refer to cacao as a grandma because they feel that grandma, like the hands of a grandma, this wisdom, this elder woman coming in to kind of protect with all the her insights and knowledge. I see her as an older sister. So she's still an older sister for me, but it's a sister because I feel a bit more of a connection. Like she's not like looking after me as like a grandma, but she's a sister because like she's by my side. Like we're living life together, do you know? That's how I see it. That's how she's always presented herself to me. It's always been this sister energy. And I suppose
Mm.
we made this correlation with a few clients and a few participants in the cacao ceremony, that cacao has a way of kind of like shape shifting. She'll come in the form in the way that you need her to come in. So if you need a sister, she'll come in as a sister because I don't have a sister. So she comes in as a sister for me. But if she came in for you as, as a grandma, but you don't really need that energy, or you don't resonate with that energy, it might be a bit strange. Like someone sees cacao as the Virgin Mary, and that connects to her. Like she feels very connected to the Virgin Mary, and that's perfectly fine because that's the energy that she needs. So cacao can shape and shift that form to connect to that person. But if cacao came as a Virgin Mary to me, I wouldn't feel the connection. So it wouldn't make sense. She has to come in the way that's going to connect to the right person. So for me, it's a sister because I need that energy. And for my friends and like for my clients, it's always a sister, it's a mother, it's a grandmother. Sometimes it's an animal, and I'm very surprised by that. But it's also not surprised because cacao comes in many shapes or forms. It's never a male; it's always a female. But yeah.
And you mentioned that it's a ceremonial grade.
Mhm.
So if somebody is listening to this and they might want to try this out at their own home, is there a specific kind of step-by-step process of I'm sure it's not just heating up a cow, putting it in a cup and drinking it like, you would maybe drink water, or even with water, I think there is a difference of how you treat it, the way that it
Yeah.
works in your body. But I would love to hear the process with cacao.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of cacao out there, and I think maybe there is a lot of confusion with chocolate, cacao, what is what, and ceremonial grade cacao. It means it's the purest form of chocolate. That's how I try to make it very simple for people to understand. It's the purest form of chocolate. What it means, it comes straight from the pod. So cacao grows on a tree, anywhere close to the equator, in a beautiful pod. It's like a yellow pod, and inside are these beautiful seeds. It's like fleshy and white, and then once they're fermented, they're then sun roasted, and then they're then processed into a paste. So they don't. When I say processed, it's kind of like they're grounded in like by hand into a paste, and that paste is known as the cacao liqueur or the cacao paste. I think we prefer calling it the cacao liqueur. It sounds a bit nicer than cacao paste. It sounds a bit weird saying that. So we say cacao liqueur. And I think it also means when you say cacao liqueur, it brings back its original kind of connection to it being this plant to do with abundance and a currency, because in the past it was cacao seeds were actually traded as currency. So when Christopher Columbus went over to South and Central America, he discovered these cacao seeds and he thought they were funny shaped almonds, and he was like, oh, these are just almonds, I'm going to trade them for like a sheep for this fruit. And everyone, so that it was a currency. So when I think of cacao now, I see cacao as this energy of abundance, of money, of exchange, and there's just so much to it. So I think when I say cacao liqueur, it just gives it this kind of prestige nature, and it's true because cacao is an amazing plant. I can go on and on about that. So I'll get back into the topic. So with it being ceremonial grade, it just means that it's fairly trade. It means that the farmers are equally paid. There's no child labor. It's also non-GMO. The soil is organic as well. It's really, really important because a lot of the chocolate now that we see in the shops have been tested and they're really high in heavy metals. So it's really important that you get ceremonial grade cacao because, especially the one I work with is in Ecuador. You can find other ceremonial cacao, and they should be on their website. They should have reports of heavy metal testing, and there should be limited, very maybe 0.01% trace of heavy metals, but it should be very little. In terms of like the standard practice of heavy metals, there's like an average, and I don't actually know the average of what is acceptable, but it shouldn't be that. It should be much less than that. And with getting a ceremonial grade, you're just guaranteeing that you're going to not get those heavy metals in your cacao, which is actually really detrimental to your health. So with it being ceremonial grade, it's an ethical practice. It means everything's ethically ethical, but it also means that you get all the nutrients as well, because with chocolate in the shop, you can get like 90% organic chocolate, but it's still full of vegetable oil, or it can still have like sugar, and it can still have salt. And it also means that it's not, because it's not nutrient dense, because it doesn't come straight from the pod, it's still been processed. You're not getting the shamanic benefits of cacao. You're not getting the spirit of cacao, because how I see it is when you start to strip plants specifically, and you have many processes till you get to the end, the medicine is being diluted each and every time. So when you get to the final product, you're left with just like the residents, and it's like the residues, and it's actually not the full cup. So it's like, why not go just directly to the source? So with that being said, with the ceremonial grade cacao, you can it's a cacao liqueur. I can actually go to my room and actually pick up some of it. Do you want me to demonstrate like what it looks like? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, why not?
Stay with me.
Of course.
These are the cacao seeds. This is what cacao seeds look like when they've been like fermented. So they look like this. You
Like
guys,
a raisin.
yeah, they're really big though.
Yeah,
But
bigger.
yeah, bigger than a raisin.
Yeah.
But and I sometimes do get my I get clients and like people in my cacao ceremony to taste one, because you can eat them. And I also use it for visualization as well. So when we do the shamanic journeying with cacao, I also then give them a cacao seed for them to then plant that seed outside of the practice to kind of cement what we've created in that sacred circle. But that's another point. I won't get distracted. And then this is what the cacao liqueur looks like. So it looks kind of like this. And this is what you would then use. So when you buy it, a lot of the times it will either be in a block, or it can be like this crumbled up, and then you have to measure it. So I normally recommend anywhere between 15 to 25 grams as a daily dose for someone. if you're working with cacao in a shamanic sense, so in, you know, a ceremony, or you want a deeper experience, you can have a 42 gram, or you can experiment with 35 up to 42, because once you get to 35, it's quite a big dose. And how you would then cook it is, it's a ritual. We're so used to like boiling the kettle and then, you know, putting a tea bag in and then just having a cup of tea, right? Like, this is a very British of everyone here in London. But with the whole idea of cacao is it's for it to be a ritual. You know, you want to take your time. So cutting up the cacao enables you to kind of set your intention, connect to cacao while you're cutting, and you boil the stove. So I always say about a cup. So measure your cup. You can do about 250 mils of water, or I just fill up my cup with like this much water and then put it into the pot, so that I know that's how much liquid I've got into my pot. You can also, it's really amazing. I don't want to complicate it too much for people, but you can also use a tea as well. Instead of using water, you can use like a tea blend. So if you've made a herbal tea infusion, you can use that liquid instead. You can also use a plant-based milk. It's up to you what you choose to use. But if you're just going to use the simple method, you'd use water, boil the stove, and then once the water's come to boil, you then throw in your cacao liqueur into the pot, give it a stir, and it will start to melt quite quickly, especially if you cut it quite thin and quite small into small pieces. Once you've let it cook a little bit, you'll start to see that cacao starts to like get really shiny, and that's like the cacao butter being released. And it doesn't need a long time to cook. I'd say anywhere between like 2 to 5 minutes. Kind of feel into it as well. And once you see that, sometimes you'll see bubbles, little bubbles appearing. I This is the shamanic side of it. It's always that symbolizes cacao's very happy. Bubbles, which is really beautiful. And then you're ready to go. You just then get the pot, pour it into your cup. I always recommend that people use a sacred cup. So like I have my witch's brew cup, but you can use any cup. I think it's important to have rituals, because life can be really mundane, and there's also a sacredness to it. Like, rituals also give you time. It's similar to like the point of a sacred pause. Rituals kind of enable that to be possible, because you're carving out time in your day where you're like, this is me time. And it just means that there's more connection, more meaning. It's a connection with yourself, really. Like, you're building that with you and what you intend to have. And rituals just allow you to pause, allow you to think, allow you to love yourself. That's what they're there for, and it's really important. So that was a long-winded answer for your question. But it's fairly, I think it isn't a complicated process. I think it is. I try and make a lot of videos like showcasing how to cook it. I don't think it should take too long, but I do tell people that, you know, the idea, it's not just a quick cup of coffee or a quick cup of tea. The idea is that we slow down. So if you can actually give yourself like 5 to 10 minutes, you cook your cacao for 5 minutes, you then sit down in like, you know, meditation on the sofa or on the floor just for 5 minutes, just to connect to cacao. That's really beautiful. If you've got more time, amazing. Like, give yourself half an hour, give yourself an hour. If you're limited for time, you can do 2 minutes. And that's one of my favorite things to tell people and tell my clients is, we always have 2 minutes. We always have 2 minutes. Like, we like to believe we're super, super busy, but I always have 2 minutes that if I'm feeling super, super anxious, I can just stop and just breathe for 2 minutes. And I think that's how simple it should be with our rituals. That if our life is so stressful and so busy, that we can still give and dedicate 2 minutes to something, so that we can still get the benefits of it. And showing up is really important for that. If you just show up today for 2 minutes, maybe tomorrow you can show up for 10, because you gave yourself that permission today to show up for 2 minutes. And I think that's, for me, what I've implemented in my life, and I've tried to encourage my clients and everyone else that attends my ceremonies to do the same.
Yeah, I love this. I do this with, even if I make coffee or green tea, I just hold it in my hands and I keep. Sometimes I don't even ask for something. I just have the desire to connect.
Mm.
And sometimes I'm like, just help me with this or guide me with this if it's something specific. But I think that, like I mentioned before, even with water, if we can become more mindful and conscious about how we approach it, because now we know that it carries memory. Like, I think it's now scientifically proven, and a lot of people are talking about it. So I feel that with something like cacao, it it becomes even more intimate, because you're not just working with water as such, but you're working with a plant that has its history of you being used by shamans.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear from you about that experience of kind of going into the shamanic uh, part, because in especially in the West, I think people tend to not know much about what being a shaman means, or what shamanism is, and it usually, even in the East, it is not something that is very common here. So I would love to hear just a bit about how it was for you, that experience of tapping into the wisdom of what it means to be a shaman.
Beautiful question. Um, it's a beautiful question. I think it's something that's ongoing. So I don't think, as any teacher would say, is it's continual, right? You have to keep the path is you're always learning. I think the end is death. So I'm always learning and I will continue learning, and there's no end for learning. And I know this, and everything that I've learned now, I'm like, I still know nothing. Like Socrates would say that, like real wisdom is knowing I know nothing at all. And it's true. Every time I think I know something, I'm like, I don't know nothing at all. But with this journey, it definitely chose me. Like I never like set out to want to study shamanism or understand shamanism. It wasn't anything that I thought was for me. However, when I think back to, again, like connecting the dots, ever since I was younger, I always had this massive desire to live in South and Central America. I was like, I have to go to South and Central America. Like, there's something there for me. I don't know what it is, but something's there. And it's been a massive desire. And finally, I'm actually traveling to Mexico this November to fulfill that desire, to feel the land and also connect with cacao specifically. And I just need to dive deeper into the Mayan culture and just find
Uh,
out more about what this country has for me. And I'm really excited for that because it's about time. I've been having this desire to go, and I think it's about pushing it forward. But yeah, it definitely chose me, and it sometimes with a lot of things you can have loads of training, like you can go and be trained. A lot of it can be inner work. I've done a lot of the work internally as well. So I've had teachers, but I've also had days where I'm just by myself with the plants, and I go
mhm,
into nature and I drink my tea or I drink my tincture, and I'm like, this is me and my time to meditate. And it's really that, it's really exploring the plant as deeply as you can and as with as much integrity as you can to understand what they have for you. And they speak to you, they do. Like, it takes time to learn that, and it's still something I'm just continually cultivating in my practice. But I'm so grateful that I do it. And my first plant was mugwort. It wasn't cacao, it was mugwort. And I worked with mugwort for about 8 months. And it was an intense journey with mugwort, consuming mugwort, teas, tinctures, meditating with mugwort, sleeping with mugwort under my pillow, and just really trying to understand the ins and outs of this beautiful plant. And these plants speak to you, but it's very subtle. You think it's not always going to happen in visions, right? Because a lot of plants, like especially
mhm,
Western plants, or regular herbal medicine plants, like similar to cacao or even similar to mugwort, you've got nettle, you've got tulsi. There's a lot of herbs that you can use. They're not these master plants similar to like ayahuasca or tobacco or psilocybin, where these are used traditionally in ceremonies to kind of to then have these massive experience and hallucinations, and to also kind of connect on a deeper level in terms of our consciousness. You can still get deep realizations with these plants, but there's a difference in terms of the scale with it. And
mhm,
my message is always really simple. I don't sometimes think we need the big plants have the transformation. As someone who hasn't actually done ayahuasca yet, and I've had many shamans in my path who have trained me and taught me, they're like, when are you going to do ayahuasca? Not yet. It's not my time, and I know that, and that would be my ego. My ego would say, let's go and do it because everyone's doing it, and I want to be a shaman, and I want to make sure that I fulfill that need of proving myself, and I don't need to prove that because I work with the plants in my way to communicate with them, and that's valid enough, and I get so much insights from them, and I don't need to do these big plants that shift our consciousness because they're called master plants. That's what they come under, and cacao still falls under that, but she's very gentle. And for me, I still think that gentle can work because transformation isn't just one big massive experience. Transformation happens every single day when you choose the right thing continually and you're consistent with it. That's when transformation happens. It's not just one big event because we can have this massive event and we don't know what to do with it. We don't know what to do. We then have this massive experience. But sometimes if you have the tools, you can do it because people have done it. Like they go and do these massive trips. They have the tools to anchor themselves back into this reality, to cultivate that energy, to become the person they need to become. But if you don't have the tools, if you don't have the awareness, if you're not really energetically ready, you're going to propel yourself in a really complicated situation. And I think it's just better to trust. Ayahuasca hasn't called me. She hasn't called me. She's the grandma, and when she calls me, that will be my time. But I know that she's not. I'm not ready for her, and I'm okay with that. So I don't need to go. I don't have to go see that. And I think that also is really important to be humble in this industry because there's many shamans that are out there that there's massive egos and everyone's like I'm the like they everyone wants to be the best. And I just want to be the best at connecting with plants. Like I just want to be best at how I can be present with cacao, how I can be present with all the plants that I work with. How can I give the medicine as purely as possible to the patients that I work with, the clients that I work with. I want to avoid, you know, projecting my own motives or my own kind of beliefs and views onto other people. I want it to be as pure so the channel can be very clear and very, very concise. And that's really important because if not, then the message isn't clear. The message isn't as pure as it could be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said, and I've been to South America and I've met people who did ayahuasca, and it was quite difficult for them to integrate it. A lot of them were more confused after than before, and that's what also kept me away from it.
Mm.
I also realized that the power that lies in it is just so massive that
Yeah.
I feel that we need to be prepared. And one thing that I also felt is that the plant is only going to reveal to you what you're ready for. And sometimes, as you said, is that it reveals something to you and you're not ready for it, so you're not able to actually integrate it and then make it a daily habit or make it a part of your life. And I agree really so much with you what you said, that it's not about the big hits and those experiences that are massive. It's about being able to find joy in the small things, because the human experience is in those small moments. And if we remember that the only desire, the real desire that we have, is to have connection with the spirit or God or the universe, like that is the one true desire of every human being. And then all the other desires, like having money, having a relationship, be having feeling joy, all of these things, they are like, I love it looking at it as a spectrum of colors. Like you said that we should eat all the colors.
Mhm.
So it's like, joy, abundance, relationships, all these are like part of the rainbow. But the true light only is the creator. It's like the creator's light goes through a prism, and it goes into all of these different parts of life. And if we can connect to the light, then we are able to perceive, receive, and experience all of the colors. So I loved what you said, and I truly resonate with it. And I also met a shaman that I talked to, and he was not working with ayahuasca. And I asked him, why not? It's so powerful. And he said, no, it's not like that. If you give me a plant that is not in my toolkit, I will not work with it. It
Mm.
doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter how powerful it is. I have a set of tools that I was given by spirits. That's what he refers them to. And I just work with that. And at that point in time, I was like, that's crazy. Like, why would you limit yourself to it? But he was looking at it from the perspective of, I want to master these plants, and it takes a lifetime. It can take a lifetime to
Mm.
really tap into the wisdom and knowledge that these plants have, because they have been with us. They have been here before us. And like you said, though, you mentioned the Mayans, like if you look at how they were using it, and we don't even know a lot of the history of it. So I think we should go deeper into one thing instead of trying to cover it all.
It's like it's like we should be a master of one instead of like a jack of all trade, right? It's like that's how I see it. For me, I want to know cacao so deeply that, and I will always be in search to know more. I think even until like I'm on my deathbed, I'll be like, I still don't know enough about cacao. And I've realized that even my teachers in my herbal studies, when they started out their practice, they said, get familiar with 10 herbs and know them better than you know any other herbs. And I have my 10, and I'm still working on them, and I'm still learning. And I think it's so important because we learn about 145 herbs, and that's a lot of herbs. And I can tell you some facts about them, but I don't know them as a relationship. I know cacao. I've built that relationship, and I refer to plants as she or he because that's their relationship. The internet. No, I don't know if it was my internet. It just went a bit funny. But in order for us to connect to plants, we have to build that relationship. It's like you build a relationship with your friends, your family, your colleagues, a partner. You get to know them, and in order to do that, you have to connect with them. You spend time with them. You have a conversation with them, and it sounds crazy to the normal human being, but I have conversations with cacao all the time. Like, show me what I can't see. Where can I open up my heart a little bit more? Where am I tensing? Where am I not being brave? Where can I eliminate fear here and fear there? And it's about listening. And the voice doesn't come as an external voice. It always comes as your own voice. But it's coming from the plant. It's not your voice because you're like, oh, this was a bit different. It doesn't feel like my voice, but it's still my voice. And that's really beautiful. And it's the inner peace that you get from that. And I think that's the magic I just want to keep sharing, is that we have this inner peace inside us, but because of society, because of our conditionings, because of the life that we live in, the patriarchy, the matrix, everything that you want to like look at life, the exterior world that feels so real, right? It's conditioned us to believe that the peace is outside of us, that we have to go searching for it when it's always been here, it's always been inside us. And my goal is to utilize and connect with plants to help bring that inner peace closer to that, because some people don't know how to just sit still. Some clients are like, I can't sit still, like I'm too anxious. So if we can utilize plants to help them get to there, it's like the plants are just helping you get to the door, but you still have to open the door. So that's how I see it. They're there just to guide you. It's like, as a coach, I say to people that I'm there to hold your hand, but you still have to walk. I can't walk for you. I can hold your hand, but you have to do the walking. Um, and that's how I see it. Plants, they're there to hold our hands, there to guide us, but we still have to do the work. And that's the important part and the scary part. But I think if we're searching for the quick fixes, that's us expecting plants to do the work for us. And we can't expect that, because then there's no communication, there's no unity between it. It's literally just, you do the work, I'm just gonna enjoy. Like, you can't have that. It has to be reciprocal. Like, I do the, like, give and take. It's a relationship.
Yeah. And you just mentioned that some of your clients struggle with just sitting down, being quiet. That's, I think, a very common thing that a lot of people experience. And you told me also before something that really moved me, that you've stopped apologizing for taking time, and you called it a sacred pause.
Mm.
And I would love to hear, how did you learn to trust
Mm.
the need to pause? What does a sacred pause mean to you?
Oh, that's such a big, it's such a, no, it's such a, I had to breathe out. It's such a beautiful question. I've been working so much closer to like to my relationship with God, creator, whoever I always, for me, I don't like to put God into a religion state because I've there's for me it's just there might have been a lot of trauma with religion and like the way that I see God being, gonna punish me or reward me. I don't think that. I think my God and the God that created this world is here as a parent, and we're here playing in the playground, and they just want us to be safe. They want us to have fun. They want to love us. And of course, like as any parent, they want to make sure that you're okay. But I don't think it's helpful to punish and do all that. But that's another topic. And I know people will have a debate about this, but I've had my journey with religion, and the more I realize that my relationship with God is very personal. It doesn't have to be in a church. It doesn't have to be with friends. It doesn't have to be family. My relationship with God is when I sit down in meditation and I pray to the divine and ask for guidance, ask for connection, ask for protection, and and be thankful and grateful for what I have. It's building that connection. And I feel that when I'm in nature. I feel that when I'm connecting with plants. I feel that when I'm doing something I love, when I'm dancing, when I'm moving, when I'm doing something that's so in alignment with what I'm meant to be doing. I know that that's spirit working through me. And this whole idea of sacred pause is just me connected to God, source, on such a deeper level. And it's literally trusting God. And I did see a video once that said that sometimes what God will do is kind of get rid of all your options, so that way the only option you have left is to trust in God. And a lot of my options just kept disappearing. Like, there was all these things that I was planning, didn't work out. There was a lot of resistance, and I was like, okay, I understand spirit. Like I have to surrender, because like what we resist persists. So if I'm resisting it and I'm like going, it's just gonna keep. There was so much inner turmoil and there was so much confusion. I was like, I don't want that. I want peace. And I know that when you are connected to God and have this really secure feeling, you get clarity. There's with divine connection with source, there is no confusion. There's just clarity. So when I know that when I have this clarity that comes through, I'm like, this because I'm in alignment with God. When there's confusion and there's like all these things, I'm like, I'm not in connection. There's something missing, because there's no confusion there. There can't be confusion. Like spirit isn't confusion. Spirit is like direct. Spirit is like all powerful. Like how can there be confusion? So me connecting deeper to that in solitude, in nature, and really trusting that inner voice has been fundamental to my growth. And I knew that I had to take a moment. And it's summer as well. Like it's quite ironic because I tried to live seasonally. So there's spring, summer, winter, autumn. No, autumn, winter. And I like to work energetically with the seasons. So normally in the summer, that's when I'm like the most active with my projects, with events, with clients. But Spirit said no. Spirit said this month we're going to just take a little pause, like do less. And sometimes doing less is actually more, because you're able then to propel forward. So I'm taking a pause, and I've stopped myself. Many times I apologize sometimes when I don't respond quickly, or if I don't do something as everyone else would want. But I'm like, I can't let what people think is right guide me into what I know is right, because God told me to do this, and I have to trust that. I have to trust that inner voice, and that isn't easy. But a sacred pause is literally space. Well, that's what it gives you. It gives you space, but it also gives you the opportunity to explore deeper what you've been hiding with the busyness of life, because we hide behind that. We hide about, like, with the busy schedule, with running around here and there. You pretend that you have all these things to do, but then you're avoiding the inner work. So like this sacred pause isn't just, I'm not doing anything, because there's a lot that I'm doing to go deeper within, but it's a sacred pause to the outside world. but really it's a sacred pause to the conventional way of living. It's more of, but it's really a deeper dive into my spiritual practice, into connecting with plants, connecting with myself, rediscovering things, working on my beliefs, all these things that need to happen in order to propel me forward. And I trust that. I really do trust that. It's like with I think of the analogy of like a bow and arrow. Like you kind of like pull it back and then you kind of like shoot it forward. So I'm just like in that stage of like pulling back and then going forward, or maybe a plant or something. I could give that analogy, would probably be better. It's like when you plant a seed into the ground, it's dark, it's in the soil, it's scared because it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm just in the dark, but then it has to trust. And then eventually a little bit of light comes through because the seed starts to like, it starts to have a little, it has a little sprout. And that's literally, that's literally what's happening now. I'm just in the dark, in the sacred pause, trusting the process. And yeah, it's magical, I think, when we can surrender and just live a little bit closer to nature and to God. And it sounds not normal for the public, but I think it's so sacred and so important that we do this.
There's one thing that I thought of when I hear of you. You mentioned that the clarity kicks in when you listen.
Mm.
But I think that people who will be listening to this, they might be wondering, how do you discern when God is saying wait versus when it's fear that's keeping you from acting?
I kind of like to touch on like somatics as well. It's like I always feel like, you know, our stomach is like our gut and that's like our intuition. And I always feel like when I feel something in my stomach and I know that I can trust that feeling of like, this needs to happen. Like if I feel my heart racing and like, no, don't do it. It's like, that's your chest. It can sometimes be a little bit more anxious. It could be fear. That could be, and it's also the way that your body's responding. If I feel myself being a bit more expansive, when like even making decisions, if I feel myself contracting, like, oh, I can't do this, sometimes I'm like, okay, there's an internal fear that's happening. And then sometimes if I'm actually a bit more expansive but there's still a little bit of discomfort, it's going to be normal, because anything that's going to push you forward to grow is going to be uncomfortable. You go to the gym, you work a muscle that's uncomfortable, you know, you have growing pains. When you learn a new language, that's uncomfortable because you don't know how to do the language, so anything is going to be uncomfortable. Like distinguishing uncomfortableness is one thing, and that can feel like, okay, it doesn't feel nice, it doesn't feel like you haven't done it before. It feels a little bit like, oh, I have to like maybe push a little bit deep, like harder into maybe the floor or something, or like when I'm putting on your leggings or you're putting on pants, maybe you have to put a little bit deeper to kind of get the pants on. But when it's confusion or like when it's fear, it normally isn't. It's normally more of a head. I wouldn't say your body's that much connected. You can feel it in your heart, like that's really your like anxiety driven, and it's a very much a heady thing, but it's not an internal thing. I think our center is our stomach, our navel. Like that is where I believe, at least, and I'm doing like a little bit of research and reading stuff where that's like our center. And I do believe that when you feel that connection to your center and like you feel, oh, okay, this feels like a good decision, like that is coming from that groundedness. Like it's literally the center point of our body. And that's, you know, our gut, our instinct, like that's where it's there. And I trust that. And it's usually with fear, it's always it's always worries of the past and the present. So like, I mean, the past and the future. So it's always like, oh, but this happened before and that happened before. And it's to do with the timeline. It's We get so confused with the time. And when it comes to knowing God, you can only know that through presentness. That's why it's about being present, like slowing down, because you can't be in tomorrow today, you can't be in yesterday today, you can only be in today. So like practicing that being present, and then when you actually breathe into that awareness of, okay, is this the right thing? And if you actually key into that presentness, you will know that that's actually okay. That's a you become a bit more of a clearer channel to receive that message. Just thinking of anything else.
Yeah, these are good. Very, very, very good tips. I think just when you when you are wondering if this is intuition or if it's actually fear which is holding you back, I do like the fact of uh, sitting down with it and grounding yourself before taking a decision. I think
100%.
taking any decision in fear is not a good idea. If you are indecisive, then you should not be taking decisions. You should sit down and actually ask yourself, like, why do I feel indecisive about this? And if you can't find any answer, then you can ask for guidance, like you said. You can sit down with a plan, or you can sit down just by yourself and ask God or spirit or universe to guide you, to show you the way. And so I like that. And I think one thing that you touched upon before, the somatic part, is if you do feel that confusion and you bring some movement into your day, it can help you to release that fear, release whatever's stuck in your body. If it's a tight chest,
Mhm.
if you feel something is weighing you down, or if you feel unwell in your stomach,
Mhm.
I feel if you bring that movement in, that helps a lot with getting those emotions to move, the feelings to move, and then you can have a clear mind.
I also like to emphasize to a lot of my clients that intuition is a muscle and it has to be exercised, because we expect to just have it. Like, why isn't my intuition kicking in? Because you don't use it. So
Mm.
you have to use it, and that's how you develop that connection with God, and then how you can distinguish, like, okay, is this confusion, is this clarity, is this fear, or is this actually the divine next step? So simple exercises that sound really silly, but I tell these all the time to clients, is when you go out, you're on a walk or you're going somewhere, maybe instead of using the GPS, like, you get to your destination, but then you take a walk and think, okay, where do I go? Do I turn left or right? And don't use your phone. Which way do I go? And I've done this, like, I've been doing this for 10 years to, one, get better at my directions, but also just to practice my intuition, because it's so mundane, but it also means it's not as serious, because when we have to make big decisions, we get so scared, because they're like, this is a big decision. Like, do I leave this relationship? Do I take this job? Do I move countries? But if we've never actually tested and, like, exercise our intuition, we will never know how to trust our voice, because it will always be disguised as fear or worries and uncomfortableness, because we don't know what that intuition feels like. So with that simple practice, you can get it wrong. If you go left and it's the wrong way, you laugh and think, okay, next time we take right. And you just keep practicing with the thing. Obviously, I joke, don't do this when you need to go to work or you need to go somewhere important, because if you get lost, then you're gonna be late. But it's a fun experiment, and you can do it with other simple things. Like, you're in the grocery store, like,
Mm.
what do I want? Do I want the red apples or the green ones? And you just pick the first choice that comes to mind. Okay, I'll pick the yellow. I'll pick the yellow ones. Yeah, pick the yellow ones.
Do I want the green or the red ones? Oh, yellow
Yeah,
ones.
that's right. Yeah. And you just keep doing things that are so. These are silly. I say they're silly because they're
No,
not.
these are great. You know, I have a friend in Mexico. She told me that she used to they have shamans in their cultures, like we have doctors in our cultures. So she used to visit these yeah, villages where they would just hang out with shamans, and she told me that they did these kind of practices where they would train their intuition. So they would have to they would get a question, like let's say a person is walking by and it's behind them. So the shaman will ask them, which color of a dress is she wearing? Is the lady wearing this coming right now down the street? And then they, of course, they would not just. I mean, it depends on the level of intuition that they would have. Some of them would immediately know, but some of them would have to take a breath and just visualize what's happening behind them, and then they would say it. And if they would get it wrong, it's not bad, but it's exactly what you said, practicing that, and then it goes further. Like there are exercises where the shaman will hold something in his hand, and then he keep it in his mind, and then they would have to guess what he's holding.
Love.
And it can be something like he would hold, let's say, a drum, and then he would hold it in his hand, and then they would guess wood. Let's say it's made of wood. That means you're already going closer. You're already moving closer. And it could be I'm holding something blue, but you're guessing blue, but you're not guessing the right item.
Mhm.
So like this, there are exercises that these sacred ancient cultures have to develop the muscle. So I love this. I think this is great, and I did this during my travels. Just wander, stop using a phone to figure out where you want to go. Just go. Just see where your intuition is going to lead you, and it never led me in any dangerous situation, at least in my life. So
It's
yeah.
it's funny because my catchphrase or my slogan or whatever you want to call it is, if we go in the direction of our soul, it won't lead us astray. And I really believe that, like, when we go in that direction of our soul and we trust where our soul's taking us, it won't ever lead us astray. It will lead us many places where we would be like, it doesn't make sense, but we look back and it makes sense. But it doesn't ever lead us astray. It's always in alignment to where we're meant to go. And I solely believe that to be true.
I I want to give one something to the audience,
Mm.
like in terms of your daily anchors that keep you connected to your truth, to God,
Mhm.
to Source. Is there anything that you would recommend to the audience, as in like a daily ritual, something that, like, if you would like to say, you could say to start working with cacao, whatever is coming up to you.
Trust the intuition. It's interesting because cacao would 100% be one of them, but I think movement is incredible. And that has to be a daily practice. And it can be movement in any shape or form. It doesn't mean you have to go running because people don't like running. Connect to something that you love. And I love dancing, and like I dance, and that's important. If you love, maybe you love walking, walk. Maybe you love, to skip, do some skipping. Maybe you love just spending time in nature. Spend some time in nature, but make sure you're walking to that nature. I think whatever form of movement that feels good in your body, like, really bring that forward, because that is incredible. It will ground you in more ways. It grounds you. It's movement. It's gonna help transform a lot of the energy that's stagnant in your body, as which herbs do anyways. But I feel like when I pair it with my herbs and cacao and movement, it's just even more so, because then you've got the physiological response of moving your body, the herbs moving inside you in terms of moving your blood and like circulating the oxygen to your body. But it's a full practice then, that, and it's an energetic practice and it's a physical practice. So it's like you've got the best of both worlds.
Mhm.
But whatever movement feels good for you, it could be yoga, it could be Pilates, it could be the gym, any form of practice where you feel this sacred connection to your body, because that's what it is. I think we've demonized our body, and I made a video, I think a year ago now, where I was like, it's so simple that you can't hate your body into a version that you will love. Because if you hate your body you can't do that. Like we talked about water. Like, water has energy, plants have energy, your body is energy. We're like 70% water. So if we're hating our bodies, like, oh my god, like, I hate this, that's, we're just feeding all of that into our subconscious and into our body, that of course our body's not going to want to move. Of course we're going to have that stagnant energy, because you're talking so horribly to your body. The same way that you wouldn't talk to your friend like that. Why would you talk to your body like that? Why would you talk to yourself like that? So when you can only change your body and like fall in, like, by love. Things only grow with love. So if you love your body and you find a movement that feels good, maybe it doesn't feel amazing, because it doesn't have to feel amazing at first, but if it feels good, you're like, oh, this feels good. Explore that further. And of course it might be just uncomfortable at
Mhm.
first, but you just keep exploring that. And then that exploration eventually becomes like a really yummy experience, and you're like, oh my god, this feels really fun and I love this. And that's a deeper way to connect to yourself, and it's something that is very, it's also readily available. Like you can access that anywhere. You don't have to go to the gym or go to you can move your body at home. It's very accessible for people. You can just find a way that feels good to your body, and that's like super magical because you don't have to go outside yourself. You can find it within as well.
Yeah, this is really great advice, and I loved what you said, that we shouldn't be following what other people say. Like, now everybody's going to the gym, everybody has to go to the gym, but I'm not enjoying going to the gym. I don't like it there. I don't feel good there. I don't like the lights there. I don't like the smells. I'm not much into this place. So I realized this after going there for some time, that this is not really the place I want to be in. And the people that was surrounding me there also, I didn't feel like they were energizing me. It was draining for me.
Mm,
Even though my body was getting stronger, my mind was getting weaker.
yeah.
And I ended up quitting that. And then I thought of, what are the different ways that I enjoyed movement as a child, like trampoline, skipping, right? And maybe rollerblades, something that maybe we didn't do for such a long time. But if we can kind of get back to something that will get us started,
Mhm.
then getting into the daily habit of it is very easy. So I love that. Thank you.
Honest, I think movement is just I know there's a lot of talk of movement, and for me movement is, it doesn't have to be so big. It doesn't have to be, again, it's the same with plants. It doesn't have to be this massive experience that you have. Like it can just be a moment that you like. My favorite kind of movement is when I'm in the kitchen dancing. Like that's my favorite workout, because that's when I feel most connected to God. Like I have my music, I'm dancing, and like I feel the energetics of it. I feel the connection to it, and I feel my body alive. And I feel so grateful for this body. And I think that's the idea of it. Like we have to get back to in touch with that. And maybe someone who doesn't like dance will be like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." That's fine. You might feel that connection and that deep love for yourself. Maybe if you're in the park, running, maybe that you love that and you're like, I love that. I don't like running, so I'm not going to do that. But I know what I love and I know what I don't, and I stick to that, and it's okay. I think we're conditioned sometimes to have to be good at what we're not, and fix and be like everyone else. And I don't think that's the case. I think you find what you love and you just like get really good at it, and even if it's just for yourself.
And how can people connect to you? What is the best?
So my Instagram is mueveteasol. I should spell it, but it's a beautiful it's a Spanish brand. It's my company brand. I'll give a little backstory of it because it means so much to me. But muévete in Spanish means move yourself. And then you've got TEA, so it's the wrong spelling because muévete is just spelled with an E, not an A at the end. But TEA is tea, so like I work with herbal medicine, so tea. And then sol, SOL, is the sun, but if you spell it with a U, which it isn't, but it could sound like a U, is soul. So it's mueveteasol. And the idea is that we're moving towards the light, moving towards our soul. And that doesn't have to just mean movement, it can mean spiritually, it can be energetically. But all in all, the idea is that we move towards our soul. And my goal is to help people move towards their soul through herbal medicine, through movement, through coaching, just through everything that I can guide and show them, because they have the medicine, they have the magic within them, and they just need to be kind of like shaken, ignited, and just inspired to bring it out of them. So it came through a meditation. This is why I love my brand. I was in meditation. I was like, what is the name of the company? And I had to work on it for like 2 weeks. I was like, God, give me the name. And it came through. Yeah, it came through. It was so beautiful. Mueveteasol. And I was like, it just felt so right, because I think so many times we get stuck in our ways of dealing with life. And we just need action. We just need to move. And it's not just a, you know, movement in terms of the gym, working out, whatever. It's movement as in taking action forward. So that name for me was, as you know, a symbolism of, okay, I just need to keep moving forward. You know, if I keep going in the direction of my dreams, eventually everything comes into place. Like, you connect the dots looking back, you just have to keep moving forward. So it felt very symbolic to me, and that's the kind of message I want to give to people, because it's very much true. I think if we just keep moving forward, if we keep going, we'll get to the end, or maybe not the end because that's death, but we'll get to that goal that we need until we move forward, you know?
Yeah. We maybe the death of that which is does not belong to us in the first place,
Yeah.
right? Maybe the death of the old version of you.
Mm-hmm. Rebirth, and
So
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
rebirth in this life, like to become the true version of yourself and to go back to the light, which is the source of all. So great name. I love it.
So you can find me. So that will be my Instagram and then my website as well. So mueveteasol.co.uk, and you can connect with me on Instagram and my website.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much
Thanks
for
so
being
much
here
for
today.
having me.
Thank you.